Hello and welcome to today's webinar on the Overseas Trade Fair program under the SME instrument. We'll present the final 3 fairs which are open for applications in 2018. My name is Jean-Jacques Lennon, and together with my colleagues Marco Bridgeford, Eddie Yan, Samrat Bose, and external experts Anne d'Autremont and Marinella Crocci, will present to you as said, the 3 remaining trade fairs in 2018 for which applications are still open. Throughout the webinar, you will be by default muted as participants. Please don't hesitate, however, to ask your questions during the presentation by entering those questions into the text box that you see in the little control panel on the right of your screen as participants to this webinar. And we will try to answer those questions throughout the sessions as they unfold. During the Q&A session, we'll ask you to mute your microphone when you're not speaking, just to avoid background noise due to the number of attendees. So the agenda for today, is the following. We will first go through an overall brief presentation of the program, an introduction, and then Marco will walk us through the Overseas Trade Fairs program experience, so what participants to the program can expect in terms of the application process before joining the program, then the timeline and the different steps once you are selected to participate in the program, and the services which are provided to you as an SME participant in the Overseas Trade Fairs. We'll then have 3 presentations respectively on the Overseas Trade Fairs in China, in Shanghai at the China International Industry Fair, then on the Overseas Trade Fairs program in India at Electronica and Productronica, followed by a presentation of the Overseas Trade Fairs participation in Southeast Asia in Thailand, Bangkok, at Metalex Trade Fair. Then following those 3 sessions, we'll wrap up with the next steps for those of you listening who are interested in participating in the program, and open up the floor to any questions from participants and a Q&A session. So to start with the overall program, the SME Instruments Overseas Trade Fairs program is part of a broader and new framework program called the European Innovation Council. That is a program under Europe's Horizon 2020 framework program with funding for SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises around Europe and in a number of partner countries, both under the SME instrument, but also under a number of linked programs like the Future and Emerging Technologies program, the Fast Track to Innovation, and a number of Horizon prizes under the European Innovation Council. There's a lot of material online if you Google that if interested. The concept behind the Overseas Trade Fairs program is that it fits within the SME instrument, where previous phases 1 and 2 of the SME instrument provide grants from the European Union to SMEs looking either to develop a concept and feasibility assessment, basically a business plan, or to prove that their technology is worthwhile through demonstration, market replication, and scaling projects. Then phase 3, in essence, the Overseas Trade Fairs program, really tries to bring to the market those technologies that have been supported with EU grants under phases 1 and 2. The basic principle is that SMEs that are part of the SME instrument under phases 1 or 2, or have been at some stage, as long as you have had a signed grant agreement under the SME instrument, are then eligible to participate in phase 3 for the commercialization of their technologies in overseas markets through the Overseas Trade Fairs program. And looking at those overseas markets, the concept behind the program is really that there is a lot of growth outside of the European Union, be it in Asia, if we look in particular at the 3 trade fairs that are coming up at the end of the year, China with growth rates above 6%, and recent news that growth in China has even exceeded expectations. Growth in India is significant as well at nearly 8%. And Southeast Asia likewise is experiencing significant growth rates. And that is the principle underlying the Overseas Trade Fairs program, that SMEs from around Europe can hopefully leverage those growth opportunities to commercialize their innovative technologies, not only within the EU, but also in these growing high potential markets. Specifically, the objectives of the Overseas Trade Fairs program are then to help SMEs to scale up and reach these new geographical markets, to increase their understanding of the foreign markets. Many SMEs don't have the scale or knowledge of distant markets, and so can benefit from the program to really get an understanding of the opportunities for them. Also, obviously, and ultimately, to prepare for business deals. That is a measure of the success of the program, that a number of SMEs that have participated in the program to date have already signed deals following their participation in trade fairs. And obviously, that is what we ultimately aim for. But the program is essentially a platform allowing SMEs to exhibit in international trade fairs, to gain visibility on the international scene, and to meet relevant local stakeholders and counterparts in order to scale their business and commercialize their technologies. The program aims to bring up to 225 innovators, so SMEs, from the SME instrument. Already, we've had nearly 150 participate in the program to date in 11 fairs. We have another 4 this year, including the 3 which we'll cover in this webinar. And those cover 11 markets outside of the EU, and obviously 3 markets in particular will be the focus for today: China, India, and Southeast Asia, more specifically Thailand. And in terms of the timeline of the program, as you can see on the slide, the 3 last fairs are in September and November of this year, with China International Industry Fair from 19th to 23rd, Electronica and Productronica from 26th to 28th September, and then Metalex in November. And as we just mentioned, 11 trade fairs have been participated in to date, up until Asia Water Expo, with African Utility Week in Cape Town taking place next month. So that concludes our brief introduction to the program. I'll hand over to Marco for a brief overview of the Overseas Trade Fairs experience for participants.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques. Good morning, all. My name is Marco Bridgeford, and I'll present to you the Overseas Trade Fair experience. And I will guide you through the application process, talk you through the timeline, and then explain the services that we offer as part of our program. So to date, we have been to 11 trade fairs, and 146 SMEs have participated, and the countries that have been visited, as mentioned earlier by Jean-Jacques, have been quite a wide range, ranging from Japan, Malaysia, China, the US, Singapore, UAE, Nigeria, and Chile. And the experience has been generally very positive. And going to these missions does not only mean that you get to have meetings, which is the main focus of participating at the OTF program. So far, our SMEs have had over 2,000 meetings. But then the additional advantage of going to these fairs is that you also have pitching opportunities to symposiums or various events. And then you'll also get access to interviews and media coverage, which is a great advantage of participating at this fair. So going through the timeline of this program, so it's quite a big dedication. It usually takes approximately a whole year, and I will go step by step to brief you over this. So the first stage is the application period, which goes usually up to 10 weeks. This is only indicative. Sometimes it takes less. And then in this stage, you feel this is your responsibility. So as an SME, you fill out the application process and you send it to EASME. Then week 11 and 12 is when we make the evaluation and select the 10 to 15 SMEs that will participate at the trade fair, with then 5 extra SMEs that will be on the wish list or the waiting list. This will be followed by a pre-departure briefing in Brussels, which is mandatory, and we highly advise you to attend, where we give you some business mentorings over the markets in the selected trade fair countries, and also give you some cultural aspects to doing business in the cultures of these countries. And we also gain some of your expectations that you would like to achieve once you go to the trade fair. So that gives us a better understanding of what to target with our colleagues. And that leads us to the week 16, which is the start of the promotion and the matchmaking in the target markets. So on the basis of the expectations that we collect at the pre-departure briefing in Brussels, we share these with our counterparts in the various countries, and we then start helping you in the promotion and the matchmaking. And this is quite a lengthy period, and then and it leads up until to the week at the trade fair, which is usually halfway through the process timeline. And once you go to the mission, we ask you immediately after the trade fair to fill out a satisfaction survey. And then after the trade fair, you will share the contacts with the SME instrument community. And then the final stage of the process timeline, which is also very, very important, is the follow-up with the contacts that you managed to gain through the trade fair by attending at the trade fair. And then we will also ask you how well these contacts have been. So we will send you a follow-up impact survey. Okay, so in terms of applying to the OTF, there are 4 stages that you need to take into account. The first one is to access the EASME OTF webpage, where you will find a link to apply, which is the one listed here in the middle of the screen. And then once you click onto that, you can log in the EASME SME dashboard and fill in your credentials. And then once you're logged in, you fill in the application form of the intended fair of your choice. And then on the basis of this, once you've sent it, you can monitor the OTF and the EASME communication to see the outcome of your application. So in terms of who we are looking for, there are 3 things that should be taken into consideration. So who can apply? So both phase 1 and phase 2 SME instrument companies can apply, as long as they have a global, ambitious and solid international business strategy, and most importantly, they have a signed grant agreement. And then the selection process is unbiased and objective. There are 3 main criteria that we take into account, and these are the impact, the fit with the trade fair and target market, and the commitment. So more specifically, the impact would be the level of expected from participation to the trade fair, prior market research and activities undertaken to find business in that specific sector. The fit with the trade fair would be the level of match between the product of your company and the scope of the fair, and the relevance of this product in the economic region. And finally, the commitment would be the availability of the amount of human and financial resources for preparation, both prior to the fair and also to the actual participation at the fair. And finally, the third item is the results. So the European Commission will communicate the results of the evaluation to all the SMEs. So both the 10 to 15 selected SMEs and also the 5 waitlisted SMEs. So in terms of the support that the OTF gives to you as an innovator is, so if we look at this weird looking circle from the top left, so we preset business meetings for you. And so with the expectations that you give us at the pre-departure briefing in Brussels, we then liaise with our colleagues in the various countries, in this case, China, India, and Thailand, and we pre-schedule meetings on the basis of your business needs. Then participating with us in our program will also warrant you a free booth at our pavilion, which is roughly a 5 square meter booth. And then, as I mentioned before, there'll be free business mentoring at this pre-departure briefing in Brussels, where we give you the right support on how to prepare yourself for making business in the selected sector, and also for the cultural aspects of the foreign country, as you may not have done business in that country prior to attending the trade fair with us. Then we will also give you company promotion. So this will be done internationally, so both in Europe and also in the selected countries of the trade fair. And this will be done over a long process of time, so both before the fair and also once we are all at the trade fair, we'll also continue the promotion side of this cycle. We will also arrange networking opportunities at the trade fair, where sometimes through an event or a lunch or a dinner, where this will give you the possibility to make new contacts. And then if you already have some contacts from the country, you can also invite them to expand this circle of networking. And then, as I mentioned earlier, attending a trade fair through the OTF will also give you the opportunity to have some pitching sessions where you can promote your technology to a wide range of audience and various stakeholders, both from local companies in a trade fair, but also international. And alongside that, there's the side events and conferences, which you can also attend. And these can be conferences, speeches, or receptions at the trade fair. And then the final aspect is that we offer up to €1,000 of reimbursement. And then on this, I will go into greater detail. So the expenses that we offer for reimbursement are travel, accommodation, and any additional valued service, such as printing, translation, booth customization, consulting and regulatory advice, and so on. But it's important to note that we reimburse up to 50%, up to €1,000. So here, there's an illustrative example. If you decide to participate with us, so to go from Europe to the trade fair, like in China, India, or Thailand, the flight might roughly cost €1,000 return. Then accommodation might cost €800. Obviously, in Asia, the prices can be cheaper as well compared to Europe. And then if you decide to take any of these additional services, these may amount up to €1,000. So then you have a total cost of 2,800, and we will reimburse up to €1,000. And then in terms of the human resources that we advise, is that one person attends the pre-departure briefing in Brussels, and this will last for 1 day. And then for the preparation prior to the mission, it would be ideal if 1 or 2 people from your company can be involved in the preparation phase. And ideally, these exact 2 people or 1 person, depending on the resources, attends also the trade fair. And the trade fair is usually 4 to 5 days. And then on the basis of this experience, the people that attended the trade fair can carry out the feedback survey, and this won't last more than 2 hours. And then the people that were also at the trade fair can follow up with the business partners. I would also like to mention that throughout the whole stage, so from week 1 up to week 50, the OTF team will support you through this whole experience, and we're more than happy to help you with all questions and queries. So with this, I've finished my presentation, and I'll give the floor to the presentation on the trade fair in Shanghai.
Thanks, Marco. What we'll do for the presentation of the 3 trade fairs is to start with a brief overview of the market, and then go into the details of the trade fair with our external experts. For the overseas trade fairs in China at the China International Industry Fair, we'll start with a brief presentation from Eddie Yan, who will give us a view on the evolution of the Chinese market.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques and Marco. Good morning, everyone. This is Eddie Yan. I'm a director of Deloitte China, focusing on foreign direct investment related services, and also public sector is also my specialization. To begin with, thank you for your time, and welcome to Shanghai in advance. Okay, a very brief introduction to the local market in China. I think the deck of slides itself is self-explanatory, so I wouldn't go too much into detail. The first is, as you can see, the headline. In the past 6, or I think now it should be 8 years, China has recorded the fastest growth for trade in services. As you can see, the red line is referring to China. It's definitely up and right. So the increase in terms of the trading services is skyrocketing. Next slide, please. So in terms of the FDI, foreign direct investment, you can see that the speed of increase in terms of FDI in mainland China has been slowed down a little bit. I think it's mostly because there are a great number of multinational companies in China. So it's understandably slowed down a little bit, just like the GDP in China. I think the story is the same. But good thing is, it's still increasing. FDI rose 7.9% to reach 878 billion yuan. That is 131 billion US dollar. It's still an all-time high, in China's history, according to the Ministry of Commerce. 2016 is a little bit. It's the only year to actually to suffer from a decrease, but we are happy to see that 2017 is still an increase and reached the all-time high figure. As a professional in this area, I think we still observe foreign direct investment should be increasing in the next few years. There are a couple of reasons. One thing is I will elaborate a little bit in just the next couple of slides. That is, China is committed to further opening up of a lot of its restricted industries or sectors, which will, I think, stimulate the foreign direct investment to a great extent in the next few years. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, China will enter into a new round of high-level opening up. As you see, the implementation of free trade zone strategy is accelerating. Now, China already opens 11 free trade zones at present. The free trade zone itself is not actually tax preferential zone. It's more in terms of the opening up from financial sector, more opening up or favorable treatment in terms of customs procedures or formalities, and it's all it's a kind of testing ground for business registration. I think business registration reform, because originally if you do business in China, all foreign direct investment project is subject to government approval. Now it's a kind of registration. We say record filing mechanism. In other words, the government will no longer issue you a red tape to permit your business. They will just do a record filing. So long as your business is not on the negative list issued by the government authority, you should be able to do your business in China without getting an approval from the government authority. That's a kind of free trade zone served as a testing ground for this initiative, and it has been duplicated to the whole mainland China now. And the other thing is Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone, or we say China-Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone, is about to be further upgraded into a free trade port, which is the highest, level of the opening up in the world trade mechanism. The blueprint plan for China-Shanghai Free Trade Port is still, under draft, and we expect it to be issued to China, to the world very soon. I think, according to the news media, you could anticipate some, substantial level of opening up, and hopefully some special tax treatment. That's the breakthrough in terms of tax rate in the free trade port. We can also, expect it to be issued in the next couple of months. The final point I want to make is, as President Xi mentioned in the Boao Forum last week, China will further open up its industrial sectors, financial sectors to the next level. For example, now if you would like to do foreign investment in terms of auto industry in China, you have to set up a joint venture. But it seems that with the next round of opening up, foreign investors could set up wholly foreign-owned enterprises to carry out auto manufacturing business in China. That's a highly anticipated area that is, opening 100% open up finally. So all those demonstrate China's further commitment to opening up policy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, that's all my part. And one thing I would like to make a kind of finishing touch is this year, CIIF has been will be held a little bit earlier. Usually it will be held in November, but this year it has been moved to September. I think one major reason is the exact venue of CIIF coincide with the China International Import Expo, which is a signature event in China to be happened in November. Probably going forward, the CIIF will be held in September because November will always be the season for China International Import Expo, and the venue is exactly the same. So probably the participant from Europe can enjoy the site even before the significant event to be held in November. So welcome again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eddie. Thanks for that overview of the Chinese market and its expected evolution. I'll briefly now go back over a few slides on the China International Industry Fair itself. So as Eddie mentioned, Obviously, this year the trade fair has been advanced from November to September, and we'll go through some of the details of the fair in the following slides, covering a brief introduction, some statistics from the after-show report of the previous edition, the 19th edition of China International Industry Fair, and the plan for this 20th edition, to which overseas trade fairs will participate. So as an introduction, the China International Industry Fair takes place every year in the autumn since 1999, so we're coming up to the 20th edition as just mentioned. It's an international industry fair, and it really does cover a broad range of topics in international industry. And it's organized by a number of ministries, as you see on the slide here, including the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, Commerce, Science and Technology, etc. And so a broad range of organizers, and it's co-organized by the China Machinery Industry Federation. And show management is done by the Donghao Lansheng Group. So that's broadly the organizers of the trade fair. On the next slide, we have a brief recap of what is included in the trade fair, which, as mentioned, takes place this year from 19th to 23rd September. It will include 9 different themes under a single roof, as it were. The themes which are of most importance to overseas trade fairs participants are those of environmental protection, technology and equipment, and energy, as we will be, as we'll see in a subsequent slide, in that section of the trade fair. But participants are also welcome to apply if in other sectors of the trade fair, including metalworking, machine tool, industrial automation, information and communication technology, auto industry, robotics, broader scientific and technological innovation, and aerospace and aviation. And what we can expect is a significant number of visitors. You see there the statistics from back in 2016, and in the subsequent slides we'll see a few more statistics on more recent editions of the show. If we move to the next section, what we have in the 19th edition of China International Industry Fair is that the show attracted 2,602 exhibitors from 28 countries and 178,000 visitors from 82 countries and regions. And that really is a significant number of both exhibitors and visitors. You can see that the show space has continually increased over the years. The graph shows the evolution from 2013 through to 2017, with increases in all 3 key metrics being the show space, the number of visitors, and the number of exhibitors. And that really is an impressive sign of the increasing importance of the trade fair as a major platform for international industry in China. Looking at the international participants, we have here the ranking list of visitors, trade visitors from various foreign countries and regions. You can see that Japan is ranked 1, Russia 2, Taiwan 3. India also significant, Turkey, Pakistan, then the US, Sweden, Hong Kong, and Thailand. And so a lot of international visitors, and obviously we're aiming to boost the presence through the European pavilion under the overseas trade fairs of European exhibitors as well. There are already a number of international pavilions foreseen at China International Industry Fair, and the European pavilion will add to those. In terms of the 19th edition, it also had the 9 different themes under a single show. So I've already mentioned those on a previous slide, and I think you can see here just a broad view of all of the different topics covered, which really makes the trade fair a very broad one, but nonetheless focused for participants, because as we'll see in a subsequent slide, exhibitors are organized by theme or area, which makes the show very useful. In terms of visibility of the show, some statistics here on the number of media covering the show, reports, WeChat feeds, WeChat being an important social media platform in China, of course, with significant click rates on the website and WeChat during the show. And more broadly, we can say that China International Industry Fair really does gain significant media coverage, including in newspapers, TV, radio, etc. So broad coverage by media. And that is, of course, something that the Overseas Trade Fairs program aims to tap into in promoting participants, so that you gain most visibility during your presence at the trade fair. Continuing on the review of the 19th edition, just a few examples of the types of advertisements that participants have, both on site at the venue, but also in various journals, newspapers, etc. Many different opportunities to gain visibility. And you can see from the photos a number of international exhibitors, with high visibility and presence at the trade fair. And those advertisement opportunities go down to also possibilities for branding through to on the badges, lanyards and bags, etc. Which of course is something which our program will aim to look into in terms of promoting European SMEs participating as broadly as possible. In terms of other events taking place during the China International Industry Fair, there's a large number of forums and meetings which are held in conjunction with China International Industry Fair. So in the previous year's edition, there was a development forum and an industry or corporate forum. You can see some of the topics covered: industrial internet industry, China Robot Industry Summit, etc., etc., and particularly where we look at environmental and energy related aspects. You have the fuel efficient and new energy auto summit, or the energy equipment technology seminar, as well as the new material industry innovation and development international summit. So a number of important international level conferences taking place during the trade fair, which can add to the interest of participants exhibiting there, to be able also to participate in these fora. And then just looking at the after show report again, what we can see on the forums is a real increase on municipal environmental pollution control, waste treatment and recovery. And so there clearly is a focus on these important areas for environmental technologies. Naturally, that is a core part of the environmental and energy trade fair for potential participants from the Overseas Trade Fairs program. So the plan for the 20th edition this year of China International Industry Fair is obviously that the trade fair be held from 19th to 23rd at the National Exhibition and Convention Center just outside Shanghai. This trade fair, as you can see, is a very big one. The venue is really huge. We saw the metrics on previous slides. The European Pavilion will be hosted in section 4.1H and will consist of 15 standard booths for participating SMEs. Each booth will be about 9 square meters. We'll have back and side walls, you know, the standard desk and chairs, electrical outlet, and a branded company sign, and spotlights. And so, you know, a nice booth that is provided free for each participating SME in the Overseas Trade Fairs program, next to the reception counter for the overall program team. And in terms of the timeline, just a few key milestones on the next slide, where we see that essentially there's a number of deadlines to be respected in terms of preparation for the program. The catalog listing happens in July, by which time we will have selected the 15 SMEs participating in the Overseas Trade Fairs program. Following that, obviously, there's a number of deadlines in terms of providing inputs for the branding, and just any additional requests for materials, and naturally to be taken into account if you are bringing demo objects to the trade fair. Those need to be shipped well in time, of course. So that pretty much concludes the overview of China International Industry Fair, we have here the contact details of the organizers of that fair. If you have any questions you want to ask them as well, of course, these slides will be shared with attendees of the webinar after the webinar. So with that, we've concluded the section on the overseas trade fairs in China International Industry Fair. We'll now move into the section on the Overseas Trade Fairs program in India at Electronica and Productronica. And we'll start with a brief introduction to the Indian market and its evolution from Samrat Bose, our colleague based in Southeast Asia.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are right now. So just a quick introduction from my side. My name is Samrat Bose. I'm a manager in the Deloitte Southeast Asia practice from the consulting side, and I have over 8 years of experience and have been involved with JJ on these business missions from European Commission, and we have been helping out as a local team to be the hands and ears and legs to help the EU companies come here and have a good experience during these business mission sessions. I have done over half a dozen of business missions in the last 2 years across Southeast Asia, and happy to be part of this team. In this slide, as you can see, the Indian market overview. Well, as you can see, EU is the #1 trading partner of India, so significant traction between EU businesses and Indian businesses already. So when it comes to business missions, we usually observe a lot of interest from the local counterparties in what EU companies have to offer. It's a fairly well, no surprises. It's one of the largest economies in the world in terms of population as well as in GDP. So basically, it means that in one business mission, you can have significant number of interactions just because of the pure density of the enterprises participating in these such missions. Just few other points. India is the 3rd in purchasing power parity in the world, hence a lot of import-export businesses. There's a lot of demand, domestic demand of India across both ICT products, non-ICT products, and hence significant opportunities for everyone here to sort of partake in this economic wheel of India. Next slide, if you. Jean, do you want to go through the slide or should I continue?
Indeed. Thanks, Samrat, for that brief overview of the Indian market and its expected evolution. What we'll do is have Anne d'Autremont from the organizers of Electronica and Productronica present the show and what's expected this year to the audience. So Anne, if you can hear me, I hand the floor over to you at this stage.
I can hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, perfect. So, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anne d'Autremont, as Jean-Jacques said. I'm organizing the trade fairs Electronica India and Productronica India, which belong to the electronics cluster of Messe München, together with Electronica and Productronica in Munich and in China. I'm based in Munich and directly cooperating with the Indian project team. I'm very happy about the opportunity to present our trade fairs today to you, and thank you. Next slide, please. So, why India? I think Samrat was already giving several very important information in this matter. I'm going a little bit more in the details of the electronic industry part on this slide. On the first graph, you can see in general the Indian economic growth, which is showing how advanced tech economies are expected to remain stable but below the global average. China, as we saw before also in the two last presentation, remains on a high level, just slightly slowing down, while India stands out, still going up slightly and far above the global average. So regarding the electronics demand, we are expecting also a huge increase in the next 3 years from 70 billion euros in 2017 to 310 billion euro in 2020. Some reason for these high expectations are consumer driven. The Indian middle class is expected to grow of about 120% till 2020. The consumer spending will increase, supported by a stable and pro-development government. The technology development will drive down the electronic prices, making the products more affordable. Also, the programs of the Indian government are carrying these high expectation with the programs like Digital India and Government Cloud. They want to improve the online infrastructure, offer government services online to the citizen. They plan to build 100 smart cities in India in the next years. And of course, the well-known programs like Make in India and Invest India, organized by the government and followed by the Indian states, offers actually extremely interesting solution for international company to simplify their entry and development in the electronic market, Indian electronics market. Next slide, please. So our trade fairs at a glance. Electronica is dedicated to the electronic component market, and Productronica India covers the electronics manufacturing industry. They always take place together in India, and together they are today the leading platform in India for the complete electronics industry. We alternate our location yearly between both economical hubs, New Delhi, the capital, and Bengaluru, the so-called Indian Silicon Valley. The government and the main national and international association support us in the promotion as well as in the development and realization of the trade fairs and their supporting program. Next slide. So both fairs reflects the actual economical trend in India and steadily grow in terms of visitors and exhibitors. At the last shows in September 2017 in Delhi, we brought together 90,000 trade visitors, 453 exhibitors representing 650 companies from 16 countries. Our international part for exhibitors is 62%. These numbers are including 5 country pavilions from China, Germany, Singapore, Taiwan, UK, and we were using 20,000 square meter gross. Considering the last state status, end of March 2018, we have already sold 2,000 square meter more than at the same date the 2 last years. And we are standing already now in April very close to our final figures in 2017. This is why we are expecting our growth to continue this year. Next slide, please. In September 2018, we will meet between 26 and 28 in Bengaluru, the Bangalore International Exhibition Center. The main key players already confirmed their participation in spaces. I just want to name a few, but you can see more on the slide. For the components part, I would name Singapore Daiichi, for example, Hyros, Murata, Nishikon, and for the manufacturing part, ASIS, Hanwha, Comax, and Mtronics, and a lot more. To be able to expand our space as needed, we will use for the first time the brand new Hall 4, which is marked in green in the overview plan. And this is also where we will locate the European pavilion, the German pavilion, and the UK pavilions. This hall gives us the opportunity to grow with the almost 18,000 gross square meter additional space. Next slide. So our growth is not only driven by the positive economical trend in India, but of course also by our market-oriented strategy and attractive supporting program. I will just name the most important points. In this year, 2018, we are starting a new partnership with the Indian Printed Circuit Association, IPCA, which will strengthen our position as a leader on the PCB segment. We started in 2017 and will continue in 2018 to focus on the automotive segment, of course, with a conference, a dedicated zone in the Hall 4 as well, considering the fact that India could become the 3rd largest manufacturer of automobiles worldwide after USA and China. We increase our space in this brand new Hall 4, which is extremely modern with the international standards. Our supporting program is developed in cooperation with the main association and the government to present the actual trends and challenges of the Indian electronics market. And last but not least, our matchmaking platforms represent very important and well appreciated highlights where our teams bring exhibitors and visitors together in one-to-one meetings. Next slide, please. So we would be very happy to make you part of this successful story and welcome you at Electronica India and Productronica India 2018. Do not hesitate to contact me if you have any question or ask some question in the Q&A part at the end of this webinar. I will be here to support you together with the OTF team before, during, and after the shows. And I wish you a very nice afternoon or evening and look forward to seeing you in Bengaluru. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Anne, for that overview of Electronica and Productronica. Very useful. So with that, we'll concluded the second section of trade fairs, and we'll move into the Overseas Trade Fairs program in Southeast Asia, more specifically in Thailand, Bangkok, at the Metalex Trade Fair. And I'll again open the floor to Samrat Bose for a brief introduction to the Southeast Asian market and specifically to Thailand.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. Once more, I'm here. So Thailand and Southeast Asia. The interesting bit of the Southeast Asian market is that it's a collection of 10 countries, 10 very different countries with different culture, different kinds of economy, and the maturity and the interests of the enterprises within each of these economies. So it's a fairly diverse region, but as a whole, it's a fairly large chunk of economic region. So almost $2.6 trillion GDP and over 622 million people in total consists of Southeast Asia market. So that's something which I just wanted to mention you because as part of your business mission, when you land in Thailand, of course the business mission is located in Thailand, but in my experience, we have seen that people from other countries also visit the business mission in Thailand. So you will be having quite a diverse set of people interacting with you alongside the Thai population. So just wanted to sort of let you know about the diversity of this region as well. Next slide. Double tapping on Thailand. Well, Thailand, compared to the other 10 countries in Southeast Asia, other 9 countries in Southeast Asia, Thailand is one of the larger economies alongside Indonesia and Malaysia, and is also fairly robust when it comes to the manufacturing sector and the industry sector at large. Thailand is known to be one of the top destinations when it comes to developing the automotive industry, the metals and machine works, and electronic components as well. There has been a lot of focus from the government on converting Thailand into a 4.0, Thailand 4.0 destination. A lot of focus on new and innovative ways of doing manufacturing processes, and hence I believe that the European SMEs, when they come here, when they bring their diversity and the innovation and the interesting products and services, there will be a lot of traction from the local participants here in Thailand as well as in Southeast Asia. From a trade point of view as well, Thailand is quite heavy and quite open when it comes to trade with both developed and developing countries. As you can see, European Union is again one of the largest trading partners with fairly big bubble compared to US or Japan, which only shows their interest in EU products and services and their innovation, especially in the manufacturing sector. So that's basically a very brief overview of Thailand from my side. Any questions, happy to answer. Over to you, JJ.
Thanks a lot, Samrat, for that brief introduction to Thailand and Southeast Asia. And I'll now pass the floor to Marinella Croci from the Metalex organization team to introduce us to the show Metalex and what is expected for 2018.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marinella Croci, and actually I act as agent for some European countries for Metalex. Metalex will take place in Biotech Bangkok from the 21st to the 24th of November with a slightly different opening timing from the previous edition, which is from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Metalex is considered the largest international machine tools and metalworking technologies exhibition in the Asian region. And this will be the 32nd edition. Next slide, please. So talking about the economy, we have already had a very good introduction. But we can say that there is a transition towards Thailand 4.0. And at the very beginning, Thailand, not really very beginning, but in 2003, Thailand was known as the Detroit of Asia. And then it's after 3 years, it was known as the major hard disk drive manufacturing hub. Last year, it entered a new era, the robotic area with automation. So there will be a huge development in the country, touching all sectors. So we will go through agriculture to the light industry and heavy industry, which took place also in the past. This is a growth which took place in the past. And the goal is to reach this Thailand 4.0, which is to have an innovation-driven country based on prosperity and sustainability, and also security. The main drivers for this growth will be, as I said, the economic prosperity and social well-being, also raising human values and assure environmental protection. So there will be lots of things to do, and with the creation of smart cities, and production will turns into startups. Very different technologies will take place. Next slide. It can be described as a curve, a development curve, which is driven by the next generation automotive, smart electronics, tourism made of affluent medical wellness, also agriculture and biotechnology, and the so-called food for the future. But the final goal will be robotics, aviation and logistics, biofuels and biochemicals, medical hub, and the digital era. Next slide. What made and what makes this possible is, first of all, our huge investment in the infrastructure. And for instance, there is a main railroad crossing the whole country from south to north, and to link Thailand to Laos and reach the southern region of China. This is can be seen inside the Belt and Road Initiative. So all the regions, all the areas around this railway will grow a lot. They're expected to grow. And also another growth for the region is expected to be accelerated by the special electronic zone. And of course, there are some leading industries which are very strong, which are the automobile and parts industries, but also chemicals and electrical appliances. Concerning, there are also free trade areas and free trade agreements signed with different countries in the areas, which also give impulse to the economy. Next slide. So the goal will be Industry 4.0, which means, as you know, a dialogue among technologies together with innovation to bring new solutions. Next slide. Metalex 2016. Why Metalex? First of all, there is a slogan, a new slogan. There is a new slogan, and this year it's metalworking, the metalworking metropolis. This means that Metalex can be considered a metropolis to gather, because it gathers the main brands and the most advanced solutions in the Asian region. It means 3,300 brands from 50 countries, and we expect to meet 100,000 buyers. So the networking community here is quite strong, and you will be able to meet distributors and business partners from all these Asian countries. As said before, Asian is made of 10 countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So they're very different countries, but they signed an agreement at the end of 2015, the so-called ASEAN Economic Community, to give free access to these countries and free movement of people and resources and products. Okay, according to my data, the statistics I gathered, just to go back a little bit to ASEAN, ASEAN is made of 634 million inhabitants, and the GDP in 2016 grew 4.8%, and it is expected. I mean, probably it grew in last year by 5%. Coming back to Metalex, so Metalex can be considered the most effective marketing tool to promote your products inside all this big, huge area of the ASEAN region. And you can reach your buyers, potential buyers, and prospective distributors. There are specific programs which are included in the package if you decide to exhibit. The promotion is being made on the website, the mobile app, and the official show directory. So it will be a very exhaustive promotion for you, and will give you the opportunity to promote up to 3 products with a brief description, and together with a photo and a link to social media. Next slide, please. So what to say, exhibitors can have a fast-track entry to this new market, the ASEAN market, and you can launch here your new products or expand your market base effectively. By the way, Metalex is being organized by Reed Products, which is a company belonging to Reed Exhibitions Group. Buyers and visitors can see Metalex as a one-stop platform where to touch selected technologies and solutions for any manufacturing requirements. It's been held every year, so be sure there are new and advanced technologies on show. Next slide, please. So we can see here the different sectors and the different pavilions which are in Metalex. The bigger pavilion is made of machine tools, and it includes different halls. Then on the left are robot and automation, sheet metal. They are divided quite spread, so that visitors can visit the whole exhibition ground. So wires and tube, factory automation, pumps and valves, equipment and accessories, and so on. there are two international pavilions. One is 100, pavilion hall 105, and the other one is hall 99. The European pavilion will be in hall 105, in a good position because it's near the crossway to the hall 104 to machine tools, near the steps going to the other hall. At the back of this hall, on hall 105, there will be the registration counter and the VIP lounge. Next slide, please. So, as international partners, we can see partners from many countries like China, Czech Republic, India, Italy, Germany, Japan, Korea, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. Next slide. So, concerning the last edition, MetalX 2017, the post-show reports 91,034 visitors from locals, from Thailand and from other international, other overseas countries. Next edition, next slide, sorry. Next, okay. If we analyze visitors by industries, we can see that we usually have visitors from various industries, just like automotive and auto parts, building and construction, aerospace and defense, electrical and electronics, air conditioning and refrigeration industry, but not only. Agriculture, medical and pharmaceuticals, jewelries, packaging, railway and infrastructure and maintenance. Next. According to an inquiry made among visitors at the past edition, we saw that the machine tools and metalworking sectors were considered the most interesting for the visitors of last edition, with 25%. 21% of the visitors stated that tools and tooling were among the products or their major interests, while 19% were interested in factory automation models. But 19% in molds and dies, and 9% in precision measuring and testing, 9% as well in sheet metal forming machine, and 6% in loading. So all industrial sectors are covered. Yes, next slide, please. The marketing channel has been read products, read exhibition. The marketing is quite complex, and it's made of direct mails with invitation flyer and the IP invitation. There is works going on online and social media, like sending out electronic newsletters, publishing news on the website and on social media like Facebook and Twitter. There is a PR campaign with press conferences and issuing press releases together with photos and organizing exclusive interviews and press visits. The advertising campaign itself is made of advertisements on magazines and newspapers, on TV, radio, billboard, website banners, and also Facebook ads. The buyers, there is a matchmaking, of course, program trying to meet buyers with exhibitors. And the buyers campaign focus on targeted attendee program. There are international roadshows have been planned, and also domestic roadshow. besides one-to-one visits for buyers. Next slide. It's finished. Sorry.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot for that overview of Metalex, Marinella. I think that was very useful to give participants an understanding of the trade fair. And with that, we've concluded the 3 presentations of the upcoming trade fairs for which applications are still open, namely China International Industry Fair in China, Electronica and Productronica in India, and Metalex in Thailand and Southeast Asia. So thanks to our external speakers for their presentations and inputs. As we mentioned earlier, the slides will be sent to all participants on the webinar, so you can go back through those in your own time and ask any questions. The contact details of the external speakers are also provided, and you can send questions through to the overseas trade fairs as well. Just to go over the next steps very briefly, obviously for all participants to this call, to this webinar who are interested, please do apply to participate in one or several of the trade fairs. SMEs in the SME instrument are allowed to participate in as many of the overseas trade fairs as they find relevant now. There's no limitation on the number to which you apply. And the dates, again, for China International Industry Fair are 19th to 23rd September in Shanghai. For Electronica and Productronica, 26th to 28th of September in Bangalore. And for Metalex, from 21st to 24th of November in Bangkok. And for all 3 trade fairs, the application deadline for companies interested in applying is the 25th of May. So that leaves you about a month and a half to do your application. The link to the application forms is identified on this slide. It's the SME instrument dashboard for those SMEs on the webinar who are aware of this. For those who aren't, the link is provided and will be sent in the slides, of course, after this webinar. Should you have any technical issues or questions in the application process, our team is here to support you with that, and will happily revise your application and support you in maximizing your chances of being selected. It is a competitive process, as Marco indicated earlier, where we do look to bring those SMEs with the highest potential to the trade fairs. But please do apply by those dates if interested, and we will, as said, support you in the process, both before you finalize your application and, of course, once you're selected, if that's the case, to participate in the trade fairs. In terms of content for the presentation, we've completed everything. So at this stage, I open the floor to any questions from the audience. And I'll just ask the colleagues if we've recorded any questions having been typed in at this stage, or if not, if anyone from the audience would like to type in a question for us to respond now. You can also, of course, get back to us at a later stage by email. The contact details are provided on the last slide of this presentation. So it's the overseas trade fairs at sme-instrument-otfs.eu. You can also consult our website, and there's a Twitter feed and a LinkedIn group where a lot of information is posted on the various trade fairs. So any questions from the audience or recorded by the team? Okay, I believe we don't have questions that have been typed in, or all have been addressed as we went through the presentations, which is great. It's a sign that the presentations were very clear. So I'll just ask for a last call for any further questions. If you do have a question, please just type it into the question box that should appear on the control panel on the right of your screen. As said earlier, you can always ask us further questions offline by email at a later stage. And so I'll just wait another couple of seconds to see if any questions come through.
I've seen there's a question from Conrad. Thank you for asking a question. So indeed, you can apply for more than one fair. If throughout this presentation you deem that your technology is suitable for a range of different fairs, you may apply to two or to all three even. So yes, you can apply to more than one.
Okay, another question just come through in terms of how many people to bring to trade fairs. We generally recommend that participants bring about 2 participants to a trade fair, as generally speaking, you will be very busy during the 2 to 4 or 5 days that a trade fair lasts, and having 2 people on site is generally considered optimal. You can have 1 person manning the booth and another potentially, attending other meetings at the trade fair or conferences, etc. So just to recap on the investment that Marco presented earlier that you can expect from your side, essentially it is really in terms of the preparation, where we ask SMEs participating to support that process in terms of preparing matchmaking, studying the market, using the support of our teams. Our teams, of course, do a lot of work in terms of preparing matchmaking for you and ensuring that the experience will be positive. But of course, what you take out of the missions depends on what you've invested in them. And so the more time and resources you can dedicate, the better. And of course, it's very important to follow up after participation in the trade fairs, where you should come back to your home market and keep contact with the interesting leads that have emerged during a trade fair. Another question here just on numbers of meetings that one can expect and how trade fairs unfold. Essentially, what we generally experience is that we aim to set up a number of pre-arranged meetings at the trade fairs for participants, so that every day at the trade fair you already have some meetings set. But next to those, and you saw the significant numbers of visitors expected at all 3 trade fairs, China International Industry Fair, Electronica, Productronica, and Metalex. You will also have a lot of spontaneous meetings from companies that are present there, or trade visitors who are present there and pass by unannounced, or have not necessarily planned, but are interested in passing by. Which is why this program offers you a booth, so that you're not only present physically, but with a clearly branded space that can attract both the spontaneous and the pre-arranged meetings. And it's why we put a lot of effort into ensuring that you are promoted up front through the program. And we've seen in all three presentations that there were opportunities to be promoted in social media, online, in press, and directly to relevant counterparts, and that's something the program aims to do.
Yawen, I see that you've also asked a question, and regarding this, we will, so thank you for highlighting this again with your issue, and we will press this issue again with our EASME IT team to make sure that this issue will be resolved, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, I think with that we have covered the questions that were asked during and after the presentations. So once again, many thanks to all attendees for your attention throughout today's webinar. We hope it's been instructive, and insightful and useful for you. Welcome your applications and questions, and look forward obviously to bringing you on board the Overseas Trade Fairs program in the next months. So thank you very much, and a good day or evening to all of you. Thanks. Bye-bye.